Good morning. My name is Yohan Lara, and I welcome you to another edition of Sunday Morning Dose. Here at Sunday Morning Dose, we discuss God's Word from Christ's perspective. We usually say to ourselves here that if Christ would not be about something, we should not be about that thing. And if Christ would be for something, then that is exactly what we should be about as disciples of Christ. So I welcome you to another edition of this mindset, of this thought pattern, of this light that we are in. Let's continue the discussion we started some weeks ago on decision. And let's start to this. Decision will lead to conviction, or decision leads to conviction. You want to be convinced of something, you want to be sure about something, then what you need to do is to go the route of decision. So before we continue this journey, let's remind ourselves of some of the truths or some of the facts that we established. We've established that in the beginning, talking about Genesis chapter 1 verse 1, in the beginning God created the sky and the earth. So God went to work in his own beginning. He started creating. He created the heavens and the earth. So our beginning as human is synonymous to the starting point of our lives. And for a year, for a brand new year, the starting point of a brand new year is the first month in that year, which is talking about January. So January is synonymous to our own beginning as humans. So for a brand new day, the morning is synonymous to our own beginning. So what we should do and what we should be about in our own brand new day, in our own beginning as humans, we should be about creating. So let's establish that fact that we should be about creating. So you want to go to work and create. So what does it mean to, so before we go there, so we have also, according to the word of Jesus, established that work, going about work or going about creating without making some certain decisions would not be effective. Talking about Luke 14 chapter 28. Luke 14 chapter 28. This is Jesus counseling someone. For which of you, intending to build a tower, sitteth not down first and count the cost, whether he have sufficient to finish it? So I read that again in another version of the Bible. For which of you, wanting to build a tower, doesn't first sit down and calculate the cost to see if he has enough to complete it? So according to Jesus, he would advise that we take some time out to conclude on our certain decisions about what should be done before we even go into the work. So decision must have been done before work. So God too ran some tests of decisions before he began work. God too did. He ran some tests of decisions before he began work. So what does the word decision mean? What is the meaning of decision? It means a conclusion or resolution reached after consideration. A conclusion or resolution reached after consideration. So you come into the point where you could make your standpoint on the issue. you could conclude on a matter, excuse me, you could conclude on something after you've made some considerations. And one of the proof that God in the beginning had made some considerations is what happened immediately in verse 2. God ran into difficulty. He ran into what we called problem. In verse 2, the earth was empty and had no form. Darkness covered the ocean, and God's Spirit was moving over the water. So God ran immediately, started work. God ran into issues. And most people, when they start a work and they encounter issues, they stop working. Most people at this point would tell themselves, this is not working. But God didn't stop, because he had made a conclusion or resolution about the work he wanted to make in such a way that nothing could stop him or deter him from accomplishing that which he had set to accomplish. So the fact that God did stop at this issue, meaning that God had gone through series of decisions, series of process to question his resolution, to question his conclusion, based on some considerations that he must have put in place. And for me, I'm sure that this earth that was empty was part of the consideration that he has placed, that he has put in place in the first place. Talking about someone who brought it home, in Jeremiah chapter 1 verse 1, Jeremiah was considered to be a stammerer, someone who could not express himself expressly, verbally. And then God would commission Jeremiah for an assignment, and Jeremiah felt, no, this assignment is way too big than myself. And considering some of my challenges, some of my difficulty, I should not be about this. This is how God responded to Jeremiah. So in chapter 5, Jeremiah chapter 1 verse 5, before I made you in your mother's womb, I chose you. Before you were born, I set you apart for a special work. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. So God would tell Jeremiah, see, you can't be telling me the difficulty that I am aware. I have set you apart. There is no difficulty that can limit you or reduce your impact here on earth, because even before you were formed, I had placed some considerations, and I have, concerning you, I have made a resolution or conclusion. So this will lead us to what we'll discuss today. We've discussed the fact that decision would propel us to think. One of the things the process of this decision will do to us is that it will lead us to the land of conviction. To the land of conviction. We will be convinced about work. We will not just work because this is what we should do, this is what they ask us to do, this is what the time will demand from us. We would work because we are convinced about it. We would work because we are convinced about it. Anytime you are engaged in a work, positive or negative, that you're not convinced about it, is because the process of decision has not been well attended to. For you to be convinced about work, you need decision. You need decision. You need the process of decision to be introduced into that resolution that you made. You need it. What does the word conviction means? A firmly held belief or opinion. A firmly held belief or opinion. A firmly held belief or opinion. So why would you not give up the second day you've started something? Why should you not give up what you're convinced about and that you've done the decision process or you've gone through the thinking process before you embarked on such matter or journey. Why should you not give up? Because one of the things decision has the capacity to deposit within us is a firmly held belief or opinion. We become opinionated. We become opinionated. We become firm in our beliefs. We have the capacity now to be firm in our beliefs. So, in Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, talking about God and how he had become firm in his beliefs and how he had become resolute in achieving that which he had set to achieve. In verse 26, then God said, let us make human beings in our image and likeness, and let them rule over the fish in the sea and the birds in the sky. Let them rule over the tame animals, over all the earth, and over all the small crawling animals on the earth. God made some pronouncement and called the gatherings of thinkers and decided, let us make a man now in our own image. In verse 27, firmly held belief produces work, produces effective work. For work to be effective, there must be firmly held belief in spite and despite of difficulty. Verse 27, so God created human beings in his image. In the image of God, he created them. He created them male and female. He created them male and female. In the image of God, he created them. Why is God achieving everything he's setting out to do? Because there is a firmly belief behind his work, or in another terms, there is a conclusion and a resolution to do the work. Why are we giving up on relationships? Why do we give up on our spouses? Why do we give up on work? Why do we give up on our children? Why do we give up on our society? Why are we giving up on our nation? Because there is not yet a firmly belief or conclusion or resolution to do the work necessary for us to get the results that we have been looking for. But God is interested, and not just interested, God is investing his time and his energy to make sure that his work is beautiful. Why? Because there is a firmly belief of his work, about his work. He has a firmly belief about his work. He had come to conclusion and resolution about his work. In verse 31 of the same chapter, Genesis chapter 1, verse 31, God looked at everything he had made, and it was very good. Evening passed, and morning came. This was the sixth day. God, at the end of everything, everything God had set out to achieve was very good. Was very good. So, but what is the difference? Decisions. For work to be effective, decisions will have to be made. What would the process of that decision push us to? Push us to thinking, and then lead us to the land called conviction, where we will be convinced about the work, where we will know that there is a purpose attached to this work, where we would come to a term with our inner spirit that this work must be done and should be done and will be done. Like, for instance, the project to make Nigeria great is a project that must be done, that should be done, and that we all must do. But for us to get to the point where we begin to create the desired nation, there must be conviction, which can only be through decision. I hope this has helped. I hope you will not just, you will take this also to your personal lives, to your personal dealings this week, on your work, at home, where you would know that you need to come into the standpoint of conviction to do the necessary work for you to see your desired result. Just like God. In Genesis chapter 21, chapter 1, verse 26, rather, he decided he was going to do something. He was firm about his decision. He was firm about his work. And in verse 27, he achieved his work. He was able to create man in his own image. He was able to replicate himself in man. So, can you come to this standpoint where you are able to replicate yourself in your spouse, where you are able to replicate yourself in your children, where you are able to replicate yourself in our society, where we can eventually have a better society? I hope this has helped. I hope you will gain some conviction this week, and we will see stronger and better next week. Till we see sometime again, same time again rather, on Sunday morning dose. This is Sunday morning dose. Have a convincing week. Thank you.